All right. Hello, everyone. I see folks already trickling in. It's exciting. I'm Matt. I'm one of the founders and CEO at Plane. We used to go by Pilot. And I'm really excited to have you all here. We wanted to talk a little bit about what's new at Plane, give you a quick recap of some of the things that we've launched and are going to launch throughout the year, and talk a little bit about the state of HR, the state of payroll. There's a lot of things going on in the industry, a lot of things going on in the world in general, and we just wanted to take this time to talk a little bit about what we're seeing, what we're learning from all of you, and give you a bit of a rundown on what to expect throughout the year. But before we jump in, I wanted to give you a little bit of history on Plane and Pilot and how we came to be. So in 2017, we joined Y Combinator with an idea to connect the best companies with the best talent all around the world. I grew up seeing a lot of my friends be passed over for opportunities because they weren't in the right place at the right time, and with companies choosing to hire where the founders are, where the company's based, and what the best talent is. And we wanted to change that, right? So in 2019, we launched what was then called Pilot, the first remote payroll platform that supported both international employees and contractors, and aimed to remove that friction, right? To make it extremely easy for a company to hire anywhere in the world, right? In 2020, we raised our first round, led by Sam Altman and Credo Ventures, and we just kept working on making the product better, right? We launched approvals, reporting, automated W8, W9 compliance, expense reporting, revamped onboarding workflows. In 2022, we added time tracking, time off offer letters, and we started working on what would end up becoming the biggest launch in the company's history to date, which is Unified Payroll. A lot of you have already been using it, and I'm excited to show it to you again. And we're going to have a quick demo to walk you through what Unified Payroll is and why we're so excited about it. We've also launched a lot of great things in 2023, new navigation, new team pages, a completely new payments experience, and we're just getting started. So this year is packed with releases, packed with things that we can't wait to get in your hands. So I'm really excited for 2023. You would think that we would need thousands of employees to do all of this, but we've intentionally kept our team very nimble. This allows us to move faster. This allows us to spend time on what really matters, which is solving HR for you and keeping you all happy. Like, we're obsessed with that. One of the things that we do at Plane is every week we look at our customer satisfaction metrics, and our goal is always 100%, not 80%, not 90%, it's 100%. Anything below that, we're falling short of what we want to deliver to you, and we consider that an issue that needs to be resolved. Support is already great, but we're not stopping there. Later this year, we'll be rolling out Slack support. So for all of you that live in Slack, we'll be able to provide additional support. You have a direct line to our team, including to product and engineering. We think this is going to be great for startups to give you direct access to our team, obviously on top of the existing support channels that we have and that you all love. This focus on customers had allowed us to, over the past 4 years, help over 1,000 customers pay over 10,000 people in 140 plus countries. We processed over $1 billion of transactions for you all, which is wild. It's mind-boggling to me. And we're extremely excited and very happy for all of the customers that we've helped and all of the team members that we've helped you all pay. This makes us the #1 easiest to use payroll for startups. Like, we constantly rank first in ease of use for multi-country payroll in all of the sort of rankings that we enter. And when I started my first company, Tools Like Plane did not exist, right? You had to figure it all out from scratch. And I don't want anyone to have to do that again, right? I want all of you building exciting companies, working on exciting things. I want you to get back to building. And our goal is to make it so that you spend as little time on running payroll and HR as possible, right? Payroll at its core needs to be easy, reliable, and it needs to get out of the way. And that's what we strive for. That's what we're trying to do. The most important part of that is getting your people paid compliantly, on time, no fees. That's the bar that we set for ourselves. And this is why we spent so much time on our payments experience, right? We want to make sure that when your employees get paid, they get money in the bank account that they can spend on the pay date in local currency with no fees, right? If someone's got paid because they see funds in some kind of a virtual wallet or PayPal or whatever that is, and then it takes them multiple days to withdraw it and, $20, $30 to get the money out of that system, that doesn't cut it for us, right? Money in your team's bank accounts on time with no fees. And for those of you that use domestic payroll tools here in the US, you would be crazy to accept anything that's not that, right? Anything that does not result in your employees having monies in the bank account on their pay date is just insane, right? So that's kind of the bar that we set for ourselves. And that's the standard that we're holding ourselves to. So today we support payments to over 140 countries, but critically in 59 currencies and 39 countries, we support local payments. What we mean by local payments is that we use the exact same infrastructure, and the employees and contractors and your team members get paid in the exact same way that they would get paid by the local employer in that country. So directly into their bank account of choice in local currency, using local bank transfers that are not crossing borders. They're coming directly from another bank in the local jurisdiction. What this allows us to do is make sure that there's no fees, that the payments are fast, and they're very reliable. And this summer, we're taking it even further. We're launching 79 new currencies, bringing the total to just shy of 130 currencies worldwide, which I'm very excited for, right? So obviously the more places we can get payments to in local currency, the more we can recreate that sort of I'm getting paid as if I'm working for a local company experience. And we're excited to bring that to even more countries later this summer. Moving money effortlessly is the sort of the foundation on which Plane is built, right? And we're really proud of the work that we've put into all of our payments infrastructure, but it's just one part of the story. Most of your teams, they get paid on a regular schedule, right? Maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. And if you're used to how domestic payroll works, this type of approach is table stakes, right? But if you have international employees on contractors, that's not so much. With many tools today, that experience is very clunky. It either requires that you use multiple payroll systems or you're using different payroll providers. And being able to answer a simple question like, what did I pay to my team in commissions, right? Or what is my payroll going to look like next month? It requires that you go into each of these individual tools, you pull reports, and then you build models in Excel and Google Sheets and all of these external tools. And it's really complicated, right? And bringing it all together is a really hard problem, right? Because in many countries, payroll is very different, right? In some jurisdictions, there is a big lead time, like it takes 20 days to process payroll, right? And it involves sort of like multiple iterations to get those calculations right. In other countries, like in the US, you can run payroll next day, in 2 days, whatever. There's very high sort of velocity of payroll. And bringing it all together under one interface is actually pretty hard, right? A lot of companies just give up. They basically say, okay, we're going to have a domestic payroll module that works one way, and then we're going to have international payroll module, and it works completely different way. We did not accept that as the answer. And this is why we designed Unified Payroll, right? So it was an all-in-one rethinking of how payroll works that puts people first, right? And we show you all of your team members in one view, regardless of what country they're in. And for each person, you'll know exactly how much they're getting paid and when. You can modify it, adjust it. And the really exciting thing about this is that this is not a fixed list, right? So your typical payroll, you would go in and you would say, okay, like I'm running payroll for this country maybe, or I'm just running payroll, and there's like a fixed list and you have to process everything all at once, right? With Unified Payroll, we're taking a very flexible approach, right? So you can mix and match. You can go through these lists of all of your people that are getting paid and process them in any order that you want, in any grouping that you want, right? So for example, if you're trying to set your commissions for the month and pay them out and include them in regular payroll, you can just go in and see the payroll for all of your salespeople, process that, get it approved, It won't start processing. You will just, confirm the amounts for us. And then you can leave the rest of the payroll for later, right? And then what we do is we process these payroll when the time comes, right? So we take any approved items, anything that you've said is okay, and we're going to process it as needed in any of the jurisdictions around the world that we support. This is extremely exciting because it gives you that flexibility to process payroll however you want, right? You get the full control over this entire experience, and it works for employees, it works for contractors, it brings your entire team together into one single unified payroll experience. And we've had many of you use this already. I think unified payroll is available to over half of our customers today. And it also supports domestic payroll, right? So it's available in all 50 states in the US. You can add domestic employees to unified payroll, and we're going to process payments to them in the same way that we would to any employee around the world, right? So what this allows you to do is achieve that dream of having your entire team all in one tool and getting paid using one system, right? And that's how all of our employees have been paid for I think over a year now. So we have a lot of experience using this as our customers. We've built this for us, like we're a global company, and we're excited to bring it to you all. So we're going to get a demo of what the unified payroll experience looks like. One of the things that I'm particularly excited about is our integration with payroll tax registrations. So we'll automatically register you for all of the payroll taxes in any of the states that you're hiring employees in. So taking away that burden of having to go in and figure out, okay, like which agency do I need to talk to? What tax account do I have to set up? It will just happen automatically in the background, which is really exciting. So that's unified payroll. But our unified approach extends to more than just payroll, right? So when we think about helping you manage HR, we always put the person first, right? So like, how can we build great tools, like great experiences for your team members, regardless of where they are in the world, right? And many tools will have you put people in buckets, right? So they'll say, okay, add an EOR employee, or add a contractor, or add a direct employee, right? And we think this is the wrong way to think about it. Ultimately, it's your team, right? Those are individuals that you're working with, and how they're being employed is sort of secondary to the fact that they're members of your team. So with Plane and our new worker profiles and a new worker experience, that decision to figure out how this person is employed gets shifted a little bit further down into the onboarding experience. So you can just go in, very quickly add a person, and then figure out, okay, like, do I employ them as an employee? Are they a contractor? Do I need to use the employer of record product, right? And they have access to the exact same great experience, the same great onboarding workflows. We are trying to make it so that the experience for your entire team, regardless of how they're legally employed, looks exactly the same. And now you can also add people to Plane that you're not paying through our platform, right? So if you just have some folks that you're working with, maybe you're using another payroll system in some country, but you still want to have visibility into your team's compensation, the changes in their compensation, you want to be able to run reports, store documents, all of that functionality is now available for any person that you want to add to Plane. And the best part about it, it's completely free, right? So if you want to add your team to Plane and you're not running payroll, it will cost you nothing. So I'm super excited about this. This is another step to help us build what we call the people operating system for fast-moving companies, right? So all of you that are building great things, we want to support you. We want to be able to help you not think about HR and payroll as much as we think about it every day. So that's just a quick recap of Plane, what we are, why we come to work every day, and why I'm super excited about what's in store for us in 2023 and beyond. And now I wanted to introduce you to Irene, who is our head of people, and we wanted to share a little bit about what we're seeing in the world of HR, in the world of hiring, and share a couple of lessons that we've learned along the way. So, Irene.
Hi everyone, I'm Irene and I'm the head of people at Pilot. I'm not sure, Matt, if you want to kind of go over the remote work recap, the difference between pre-COVID, post-COVID, and what do you think of the current, the market is like and how that has impacted the hiring globally?
Yeah, so I think with COVID we had or before COVID we obviously had the emergence of remote and global was sort of like happening and simmering in the background, right? And we've seen a lot of companies adopt these policies, but it was far from mainstream, right? What happened in 2020 is we all got forced to work from home, right, for a while, and I think this gave companies a great opportunity to try remote, right, and I think for a lot of companies that meant that they ended up staying remote and they loved it, and for others it means that they're going back to having people in the office, right, and I think and we were sort of seeing this play out probably about half, like half the companies that I talk to are kind of like, okay, I can't wait to have people back in the office, and the other half is like, okay, well, this is awesome. This works a lot better for us um, than maybe I even expected. For me, this has always been about flexibility, right? So I never like to think of remote as being the only solution. I always think of having location not play a role in how you're building your company, right? So if you want to build a company where you have people locally, great, like all the power to you. If you want to have folks work from offices, but globally, all over the world or in small pods, that's awesome. You should be able to do that, right? And I think what COVID had shown us is that employees want this flexibility, right? And companies want this flexibility too. They want to be able to build companies in the way that they want to build companies. And I think that's sort of the biggest thing that we're going to take away from this period of time is that flexibility is important, right? And tools that enable that flexibility, I think, are really important, right? As a company, you should never feel like you're constrained in terms of how you want to build a company by the tools that you have at your disposal for things like HR or operations. So that's I think my main takeaway from that. And when it comes to the recession and the impact on hiring globally, I think this is very company specific. What we see is that some companies are growing faster than ever. Some companies are obviously needing to scale back. And again, it's the flexibility of being able to do that I think is really important, right? And if that means, for example, relying more on contractors than employees, right? Because you want that ability to flex up and down depending on what the current sort of like what the situation of your business is. I think it's really important to have that as an option, right? And be able to take advantage of that flexibility.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll go over some of the challenges I have experienced when it comes to distributed workforce. I think different regions and countries have different labor laws, tax regulations, benefits, and employment practices. So ensure compliance with these regulations can become very complex and takes time to understand. Each country has different requirements, onboarding documents, statutory requirements, and payroll calculations. And often the employment agreements have to comply with local laws. And also terminations outside the US can be tricky and time consuming. There are mandatory notice periods, severance, holiday payouts, and other statutory payments. So what I've done is to seek guidance before a new worker is hired. And this can be done by consulting with local experts, employer records, and just to understand the requirements ahead of time. I review and update the policies and other relevant documentations just to adapt to the new changes and just to make sure that we are fair to all of the workers. Another challenge is the payroll taxes. I have personally experienced. It can be complicated and takes a lot of time. This includes research, payroll taxes that need to be registered, especially when there are local income taxes. There's some state that has multiple, and Pennsylvania has like more than 200 local taxes that you need to be aware of. When I was with my previous employer, I had to register more than about 20 states for multiple entities. That was a lot of accounts to manage, and it was very difficult to stay up to date on all of the new regulations. But we have to make sure that we do meet the requirements just to avoid penalties. Some other challenges I have encountered with remote work is procurements of devices, onboarding consistency, and ensure workers are connected. It's important to have the policies around how you want to handle these devices, checklist, standard benefits, and events, just to make sure that there are minimum differences between employees or workers working in the office or remote. So I would say managing remote workers globally definitely requires the right tool and compensation strategy. So I have used many tools to manage onboarding, employment profile, payroll, and offboarding. I always wanted to have one platform to manage them all, so I don't have to move between platforms to perform different tasks. Sometimes I feel like I'm just moving data from one to another manually and have to manage all of the data on different platforms. Also, it's very difficult to know where to look for information when there's so many different tools. And I would say the benefit of having one platform will allow us to keep worker data only in one place, including personal information, employment history, and payroll history. So this centralizes the data and reduces the manual entry that you have to do, minimize errors, and improves the data accuracy. So we do use Plain internally to manage all workers, including employees and contractors. We onboard them and pay them domestically and internationally. We use our contractor templates and collect the required tax forms for payroll, but we'll go over more of that with our live walkthrough later. So when it comes to compensation strategies, there's definitely some factors to consider. One is location, and first is the location-based pay model. This is when companies pay workers based on where they live. This will account for cost of living, taxes, and the job market. So the benefits of this is workers doing the same job can maintain the similar lifestyle, but on the other hand, there may be a huge gap in between their compensation. So for example, someone in San Francisco may have a much higher comp compared to someone living in Poland. Also, oftentimes you will want to adjust their compensation if they relocate, but you have to think about if you want to actually decrease someone's salary if they move to somewhere with a lower cost of living. Second is the location agnostic pay. So this model, companies pay workers based on the value of their work and not based on where they live. So this model, workers doing the same work have the same pay. The benefit of this is to make sure all workers have equal pay. There's no need for adjustments when it comes to relocation, and you can be more competitive in certain job markets. But this model can also become very expensive when the company grows. So hybrid pay is the combination of the first two models. This is the model that Plane uses because we want to make sure that all of our workers are getting the same pay, doing the same job, and at the same time. We don't want to have a huge gap in between the compensation on all of our team members. So the benefit of this is that
maybe you can share, Irene, of what how this works in practice, right? Like, because what we do is effectively we for specific roles we choose regions that we're going to be hiring in, right? And then we have a fixed compensation range for that specific role, right? So on a sort of a per role level, your compensation is completely agnostic to your location, but we do accept that certain roles we hire more in certain markets, so we don't benchmark everything to a single geography. Is that a fair way to summarize it?
Yeah, so we benchmark, certain positions in departments to a specific job markets. So the benefit of that is, the flexibility that you can have and equality and, and the ability to stay within the budgets. But I think with this model, sometimes it can take a lot of time to manage, but also it may be unfair to some team members because they're benchmarked to different markets. So, yeah. And so some other factors to consider is the differences between levels, experience, and the benefits just to attract and retain workers. But we do have our salary guide that we just recently shared not too long ago that is available through our website. And we also have remote compensation data that's available on our website that is free for all of you to utilize.
Yeah, this is a great resource. We've had a lot of great stories from customers and not customers actually, because this is broadly available, that they're able to use this information to inform their hiring and compensation strategies, which is great. So, anything else you wanted to add, Irene, before we hand it over to Rob?
Yeah, that's all I have for today.
Awesome. And if you have any questions to anything that we talked about today, whether that's to the sort of the vision and what we're working on, this compensation topics, or to the demo that we're about to go through, you're welcome to pop the question into the Q&A and we're gonna get to it towards the end of our call. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to Rob, who's our head of product here at Plane. Rob, you're off to the races.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to do a live walkthrough, and so I'm super excited. We've been working on this for more than a year, and as Matt mentioned, we have a lot of releases in 2023, and we'll continue. We have a lot of things in plan for you. So some of the things I'm going to show you today are not quite available, but most of the things are. And as Matt said, our vision is to make things super easy, make it so that you don't have to think too hard about HR and payroll. And so we'll be able to demonstrate some of that today. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen and go into the demo. Okay. It comes across. All right. So the first thing, I've logged in as a Plane administrator. So this is the administrator view. Today, we're just going to focus on the admin and the admin view for today. I'm landing on the homepage. And the homepage is allowing me to have quick visibility to things that require my action. I can see that I have some people that are onboarding, I have some expenses to approve, and I've got some upcoming payroll to review and see some high-level trends that's happening in the organization. And in this particular demo environment, I've got 15 employees. You can see across the United States, Mexico, and Egypt. So it's a remote distributed team. I can also visualize that by looking at a map. This is kind of an updated map view that we have, so you can really visualize what's happening, in your organization. A lot of the employees are based in Colorado. I happen to be based out of Boulder. I set up the demo environment, so I picked Boulder as kind of the headquarters. For this demo, I'm going to start with looking at the HR features first, and then I'll move into payroll. We think of it as a unified experience, both from an HR and a payroll perspective. So if I click over into team, we've got a list of all the team members here, and I'll start by looking at an employee. So we have James, who's in the engineering, reports to Charles, and is based out of San Jose, California. And this gives you an idea of how we structure our HR data. We want to make it easy for you to manage your HR data, no matter whether it's a contractor or employee. And we're looking at the employees. You can see we've got personal information, employment, compensation. We'll take a look at some of these different views in a moment. So under personal, you can see this kind of information: addresses, IDs, names, and so forth. Under employment, we see that James has been recently hired. So his start date, he's a full-time employee and part of engineering department. You'll be able to make changes to all these records and view history. When I go over to compensation, we can see salary. And we note here that James is being paid twice per month. On the 15th and last day of the month. And this is referred to this as the pay schedule. And when we get to the payroll section, we'll see how that ties in. So James is being paid twice per month, and that's his annual salary. We can have visibility into all the payments that have been processing or coming up for James. And during the onboarding process, we asked James to he actually received an offer summary, which is attached to his profile. As part of onboarding, James would also have to do things like set up his taxes, his withholdings, and all that information is attached to their records. So all the compliance information that we facilitate through onboarding is attached to his profile. So this gives you a quick view of the structure of how we organize the HR information. And now we can take a look at a contractor, which will see a very similar structure, the exact same structure, but slightly different data. So if we take a look at Emma over here, she's based out of Egypt. She's in Cairo. Again, similar information, same structure here. If we click over to the compensation tab, we see she's being compensated in her local currency, the Egyptian pound. But has a different pay frequency than James. She's on a once per month pay schedule. Okay. And through the onboarding process, we facilitated provided a locally compliant contract. So under documents, things like executed contracts or new contract versions or other things that are relevant to the contract are here. So we have contract, and under taxes, we see something a little bit different than the employee, because Emma won't have to fill out a W-4. That's only for U.S. employees. But as an international contractor, she would be required to provide a W-9 form. So it's all organized, but the slight differences between the contractor and the employee. Okay.
I think she's an expat. I think she's a U.S. citizen living in Egypt. So I think W-9, not a W-8. But
yeah. Okay. Now I want to show you how easy it is to just add a person to Plane. I have to learn that still. And as Matt mentioned, our general approach is we want to enable you to add your team member very quickly. And then you can defer a number of decisions. How are you going to engage them? Do they need a contract? Are you going to invite them to the platform? What is their start date? None of those things need to be decided up front. You can just simply add them to the HRIS and get started. So I'm going to type in, we'll do Walter Shapiro. And let's just say that is going to be working out of the United States. I'll put an email. And let's say that Walter is an employee. Now, the choices you have here are dependent on the country. So if Walter is being hired into the US, you might want to send an offer letter. We facilitate that and add them to payroll. If you don't know yet or when the timing of this, you just want to add Walter to your HRS and just begin managing data and decide to do all these things later, you can. I can just save and continue. If I'm ready to get going, I could go ahead and start the offer process. and start onboarding. And I would initiate a US specific onboarding process and get them set up for US payroll. If, let's say, Walter was based out of the United Kingdom and was an employee, then you can use, you can hire him where Plain would be the employer of record. Again, I can decide to do this later if I just want to add Walter to the system. And if Walter was a contractor, I would see slightly different options. We would facilitate a contract that's locally compliant. You can decide if you want to do direct payments or add them to payroll. So you have all that different flexibility. So I'm just going to go ahead and add Walter as a contractor and not make any decisions now. And we'll jump in and go ahead and see what his profile looks like. So again, we're back to our HR record. We refer to this as our team member profile. And I can take different decisions here. I can decide I want to invite Walter to Plain. Whether or not I'm paying him or not, I can invite him. He can help manage his own profile. Once he starts being paid, he can set up his own bank accounts. He can download his tax documents and earning statements and do all those things. And when I'm ready to do that, I can initiate the onboarding process, add him to payroll, do all these different actions. Again, our philosophy, make it easy to add someone. As you learn more about how you're going to engage that particular team member, you can then decide how you want to work with them. Okay, so that's adding someone to payroll. And before we get into payroll, one more thing I want to show you is the onboarding process. So this gives you a glimpse of the different processes that we can facilitate behind the scenes. So if I click on onboarding, this view includes everyone who is been added who hasn't started onboarding or is going through onboarding. And here we see Derek is out of the United States. He's an engineering lead. He's started the process and we can see sort of a process flow where you add someone, they get invited, they get onboarded, and they get completed. And we have different milestones and tasks. Now, different tasks have been completed already, such as completing different parts of the Form I-9, but we haven't yet set the start date or decided on a background check. And we haven't invited Derek to the process. In contrast, we can look at a different employee, someone that we're hiring out of Canada. Similar structure again, so it's has a unified sort of experience, but there are different requirements. When you hire someone internationally, there's some legal reviews. There's looking at the particular taxes and making sure that everyone's really clear on the total cost to hire this person through the process. So this is just a little bit of a glimpse of the process that we facilitate to onboarding. We have additional processes when someone is offboarding and so forth. Okay, so now I think it's time to transition, so we have time for Q&A, into unified payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and click over to the Run Payroll over here. And I'll start by just explaining a little bit about payroll items. So you saw earlier that we had our employee James was assigned to twice per month, and we had contractors on a monthly. So all team members on payroll get payroll items. So based on the pay schedule. So our default view here is pay date. So everyone being paid on June 30th. These are all the people being paid on June 30th. We can easily see who's being paid by pay period. This is coming up in June, and all those by country. So this gives you just a view to navigate all the different items that are coming for payroll. But on a day-to-day basis, we've created this overview page. This helps you really understand what actions are necessary to run payroll. So what this was showing is all of the things that require attention surface at the top. So we can see here that we've got a payroll that needs to be approved by June 12th. And we always very, very explicit about the date. So I'm the Mountain Time Zone in the US. So by 1 o'clock on June 12th, I need to review this payroll item. It could be hours I need to approve for an hourly worker, or just a payroll change that hasn't been approved yet. And exceptions that might happen surface as well. So we've got someone who's blocked for payroll. That can happen if someone doesn't have a bank account, or there's a state registration that isn't complete yet. We will flag those things so it's front and center, so that payroll can be processed on time. So this has to be approved by June 9th or resolved by June 9th. And all of the payroll that is ready to run is going to be in this pending state, and recently paid payroll is down below. And of course, you can get to history, all your payroll history by going here. So let's take a look at the employee payroll in the United States, which is pending. The pay date is June 15th. The pay period is June 1 to June 15th. and we can go ahead and click into that and see that everything's ready to go. Everything's pending. I've got until June 9th at 1 o'clock to Mountain Time to make any changes. As they go through, and we'll take a look at one of the items. I want to give Julia a bonus. And so I've got up until June 9th to be able to do that. I can view her payroll item for this pay period. And we see that we see her compensation. We see that she is based out of Colorado. You see all the relevant taxes for employee taxes, employer taxes. Julia is contributing 5% to her 401k, and the organization is matching that up to like 2%. If I remember correctly here. Julia also had some reimbursements. So we link this to our expense module as well. So let's go ahead and give her a bonus. So we hit edit. We can go ahead and add, we saw her regular earnings. We can go ahead and add different types of earnings. So I'll go ahead and do a bonus. And let's say it was $200 for that pay period. And we can save those changes. We can also see the reimbursements. So there's a company event, and she filed an expense report that was approved and we just got attached to payroll. And we can see that here. And if we need to reject it or to review it in any way, we can go ahead and do that as well. I'll go ahead and save those changes. And now we can just make sure that it's all approved. So go back to payroll. And we can just see that, I do have an action still. I still have to approve Julia's payroll before the 9th. I'll leave that for a little bit later. But this is a quick view of unified payroll. We call it unified because, as you can see, we've got employees in the US, we've got contractors internationally, we've got employees international, all in one place that you can manage. One other thing I wanted to share before concluding is our tax registration. Matt mentioned that our automation of tax registration. So as soon as you add someone in a new state, in the US, for example, and you haven't done registrations, we detect that for you. And we've heard over and over again from customers what a pain it is to navigate state websites. So we'll be able to surface the action that you have to register in a specific state, and then facilitate that whole process and to make sure that that's all complete and won't block payroll. There's many other things that we didn't get a chance to cover today. Direct payments, vendors, expenses, time off, other compliance and reports, but hopefully that was a good overview of everything that we've been working on, and we're super excited to have more. If you're a customer that's currently using contractor payments in the old model, the new model is ready for you. We just have to do a little bit of migration. So reach out to support and we'll get you access as soon as possible. Okay,
Awesome.
I can spend a little bit more time on the roadmap, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just make a few comments about some of the other things to expect, the broad themes. So if you could pull up those slides, Matt, that would be awesome. I think we got one more slide. Here we go. Yeah. So as Matt already mentioned this, so we want to make this the HRIS functionality completely free to you, and so that's coming. So that's coming very soon. And many of our customers who use us for employer of record, we are adding a number of features to unified payroll that will allow you to make the change process much easier. So requesting a compensation change, requesting a bonus, you'll have a preview ability for that. Make sure that the changes get reflected and then approved, and you'll have that complete visibility and control in the product directly over that. So that's something that we're actively working on. We've heard a lot about the need for integrations. Integration is going to be a pretty big theme for us moving forward. And we'll be starting by looking at some accounting integrations. So whether it's Xero or QuickBooks Online, making that super simple and all the kind of supporting detail necessary to facilitate the proper accounting for that. It's coming up. Benefits, we didn't see a lot of that today, but benefits is another big area to make that simplify how that is administered through payroll. We saw some onboarding processes, but we're improving some flexibility and making a more general set of workflow and test management tools to support any number of different HR processes. Multi-level approvals is a pretty big deal. We've had lots of requests from people. So whether it's multi-level approvals for expense reports or payments, so give me that more control in your organization for who can do what, notification preferences, and of course, there's always reporting enhancements that we have, and we've got a number of those lined up. So ran through that kind of quickly.
Awesome.
It's a good.
Thank you, Rob. That was a really good rundown. I appreciate it. As you've mentioned, a lot of these things are already available. So if there is anything in particular that that you're excited about, please drop us a note. Reach out to support. You can contact us either through the in-app chat or support@plane.com, and we're happy to walk you through what's coming and help you migrate to the new experience. So fantastic. Irene, I think we do have a couple of questions from the audience. Do you want to run through a few, and then we can start to wrap up?
Yep. So first questions. What kind of compensation strategy do you recommend for an earlier stage company that's just developing our first strategy? I can answer this question. I think this definitely depends on your company structure. I think if you're only hiring in, let's say, a few locations in one location, you can definitely use the location-based model. If you're more distributed, then I would say I would recommend the hybrid model, just so you kind of have a little bit of leverage. The one strategy is that you can set a cap for compensation, and once you reach that cap, then you can use the location-based strategy on, let's say, if a developer is getting paid more than 100, then anything that's over 100K, then you can use the location-based model, just so you're still staying within that budget. But yeah, so that would be our recommendation, or my recommendation. But of course, Matt, if you have anything to add, since you have the experience of starting, companies yourselves.
I think the only thing I'll add is you want a system, but you want something simple, right? So don't overdo it. I think there's a lot of great resources around compensation, benchmarking, and tracking, and leveling, and all of that that are meant for much larger companies. I think it's good to start with something simple, but you also don't want to have no system, right? I think in general, discourage founders from just sort of individually negotiating salaries with each employee, even if you're sort of just getting off the ground. Having some kind of philosophy and some kind of sort of like set compensation levels is really helpful. Even if, again, the system is pretty simple. The main reasons for that is that kind of having independently negotiated salaries is really hard to unwind into the future. And eventually you do want something a little bit more standardized. And if there is no resemblance of a system to start with, you're going to be going through some pain to make those changes later on, right? So I think have a system, but keep it simple. Again, you should be focusing on building your product and your company, and not inventing compensation strategies. So
great. Our second question is, how does Plane support compliance? Rob, if you want to tackle this part.
Sure. Yeah, you saw some of that in the demo. There's different forms of compliance. So if we talk about onboarding a worker, there might be specific compliance requirements. If it's a U.S. employee, their work authorization requires Form I-9. That's part of our onboarding process that is handled through onboarding and attached to their profile. If it's a contractor, they'll provide W-8 or W-9 form as an example, and that's facilitated through onboarding. We also make sure that when we have payroll, facilitating the registrations, the appropriate withholding accounts are established. And whenever there's a change in payroll, like legislation or tax legislation, all of that is all handled behind the scenes So if there's, say, in one state, paid family medical leave act required contribution, we will handle that. We will alert you. We'll make all the payroll changes. They'll be handled automatically. All the appropriate filings are handled from a payroll perspective, and our contract functionality, whether it's international employee or contractor, ensures compliance in the local country. So those are the key areas of compliance. Let me know if I've missed anything, Matt, that you can think of.
No, I think that was a good start.
All right.
There's obviously I guess there's like payments compliance, but it's sort of like we handle that under the scene. So like, compliance with OFAC and sanction screening and things like that. Like hopefully our customers don't get too exposed to that. So we just handle that for you under the scenes.
Cool. Have you been seeing companies trend more towards hiring in the US or outside the US? I think it's about the same, and I think it depends on the job markets and the type of positions that you are hiring for. But Matt, have you seen any different trends so far in hiring in the US versus internationally?
I've seen a sort of a move from folks wanting to work more locally with people, especially very early on. I think there is a bit of a trend to get people in the same room that's happening, or at least that there's sort of like a vocal contingent that's sort of advocating for that. That doesn't have to be in the US, so like I honestly I don't see this US versus non-US distinction as particularly helpful. I think it's more of a question of, are you going to be sort of working with folks in like physical proximity or not, right? And I think the thing that we've seen is that once you make that decision on how you want to build a company, the country sort of line, I think that has largely disappeared, right? So like prior to things like Plane existing, there was a segment of companies that were like remote friendly but US only, right? And that was like very specifically to do with compliance and the complexity around bringing on folks internationally, right? And I think now with tools like Plane existing and being available, I think there's a lot fewer companies in that specific bucket, right? So I think you either decide that, hey, like we just want to be a bunch of people working out of a garage, right? In which case, wherever that garage is, if it's in the US, if it's outside of the US, I guess that's where you're going to be. And if it's and if you're building a company that's remote friendly, you usually tend to open up to folks internationally. So at least that's what we've seen.
Great. How do you see AI affecting the HR and the payroll space? I like this question is because I think AI is quite big topic right now. So do you see anything that will affect our space specifically?
I think it's a cool question. So there is obviously a lot of people that are just concerned about jobs and like what's going to happen. Are we just going to see AI eat all of our jobs, right? And I don't see that as a huge risk. Like I think for me, from what I've seen, AI is a transformative technology, but it is a technology that can amplify what we're able to do and give us more leverage. And what I'm particularly excited about is being able to sort of do more with smaller teams, as opposed to having to grow your company to thousands and thousands of people, right? In the sort of this transition, some companies are probably going to shed some employees, right? I think more likely they're going to grow less slowly, right? In terms of headcount, I think that's kind of like what we might see more of, right? Is that as we sort of like get this additional boost in efficiency that comes from being able to leverage AI, we'll see companies not grow headcount as quickly as they sort of had to in the past, right? and my my thesis is that we're going to see a lot more companies, company formation, right? So we're going to see a lot more people starting companies, a lot more companies being formed, because we're able to sort of do more with this new technology that we have. So I'm excited for that. I think this is going to create a lot of really interesting businesses, a lot of really interesting companies, and hopefully ones that don't necessarily have to have 5,000 people to build a viable business. They can do that with in a much smaller, much more nimble and agile way. So I'm excited for what's coming with AI, and I think the trends that we're seeing are largely positive.
Great. What kind of feedback have you been getting from early users of Unified Payroll so far? I think, Rob, maybe you can take this one.
Sure. Yeah, we've been running in beta since last on US Payroll in particular. Some feedback from many of the customers has been, they initially selected Pilot, then now Plain, because they wanted a unified solution. They were using multiple tools. So we were able to deliver on that. So they were using one tool to pay contractors, a different tool for managing US employees, and then a totally different service for international employees. So having all that in one spot has been super beneficial, not just because it simplifies their experience. There's a big cost savings associated with that tools consolidation as well. Getting that feedback. The state registration process for the early adopters has gone very well. I can't tell how many times I've heard people, it's like they want to bang their head on the desk because of dealing with the different state registration websites. And so when they leverage our service, it just simplified that a lot. And things have gone, I think, relatively smoothly through that experience. One customer in particular who came from a large organization felt like the capability to hire a contractor, and he described this in like 30 minutes, getting things going, getting the contract out, getting things signed, getting things set up, was very quick. So this capability and this flexibility to hire someone very quickly was a capability was very valuable for a smaller company that kind of felt that maybe was only achievable with a larger company with like a staff who dealt with this kind of stuff. So that was some of the feedback that we got from early customers.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, I think we're running up on time. So Irene, was there any other questions that you wanted to cover before we wrap up, or are we good to?
I think just one final question is the change from Pilot to Plain tied to any changes to our products?
I think it's a happy coincidence that we have a lot of releases, but it's independent of each other, so it's still the same product that you all grew to love. We're obviously rolling a lot of things out, but it's independent of the name change. And hopefully it's it's going to take some adjusting to. It's definitely going to take some adjusting to for us, but we didn't go too far from where we started in terms of the name. So hopefully that will make the transition process a little bit easier.
Great. I think we're right on time.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, it was great having you all here. So very excited to share a little bit about Plain and what we've been up to and what is coming. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at support@plain.com. I'm Matt at plain.com. So if you want to reach out to me personally, say hi, or have any questions, anything that I can help with, please let me know. And hope to see you all again soon. All right. Thanks, everyone.